Hello everyone, my name is Carson. I'm going to be an ME340 lab instructor, and today I'm going to be walking through the ProtoTRAK SMX lab using the ProtoTRAK Mill lab manual. So today I'm going to go over basic operation of the machine. This knob right here is going to be controlling the Y-axis of the bed. This here is going to control the X-axis. And for the Z-axis control, we can use the quill here, but for the lab we're going to be using the head control unit. Now looking at the control unit, this button right here, mode, is going to be how you return to the main menu. And these buttons down here are going to be your basic select menu input. Now I'm going to go over the basic equipment we're going to use for the lab. So these two tools are going to be the two drills we're going to use. This is going to be our our 1/4 inch diameter drill, and this is going to be our 1/2 inch diameter end mill. The equipment we're going to have for the lab is a 1, 2, 3 inch gauge block, and this is going to be our 6 inch gauge block. And finally, this is going to be our 3x3 workpiece that we're going to machine. Finally, for safety, make sure that you have nothing hanging off your person that can get caught in the machine, and you're wearing your safety glasses. So the first procedure for this lab, we're going to program all 3 of the cutting events into the machine. But before we do this, we want to delete any existing program already set up. To do this, we're going to press Mode to get to Home, press Edit, Erase Program, and hit Yes. This deletes any existing program previously set up on the machine. Now to program our 3 different events, we're going to hit Program, go to Begin. Now all 3 events are going to be set up in the lab packet manual. So if you go to the back of the lab manual, all of the inputs will be there. Our first event is going to be our bolt holes. So we're going to press bolt hole and then 1 for drill. The number of holes for this is going to be 4. The X center is going to be 1.5. The Y center is also going to be 1.5. The Z rapid is going to be 0.02. And the Z end is going to be -0.125. The radius is 1.27. The angle is going to be 45. The number of variable PEX is only 1. The RPM is going to be 800. The Z feed rate is going to be 3. And we're going to be calling this tool number 1. Now once we have the first event set up, we can move on to the second event, which is going to be our rectangular pockets. In order to do this, we are going to press Pocket and then Rectangular Pocket. And along with the first event, we're going to get all the information for this from the lab packet. So X1 is going to be 0.75. Y1 is also going to be 0.75. X3 is going to be 2.25. And Y3 is going to be 2.25. Our Z rapid is going to be 0.02. Our Z end is going to be -0.125. The conrad is going to be 0.25. The direction for this is going to be clockwise, so we're going to press 1. The number of passes is going to be 2. The entry mode, we're going to want zigzag ramp, so we're going to press 1. The final cut is going to be 0.02. The RPM is going to be 2,000. Along with the final RPM is going to be 2,000. The Z feed rate is going to be 3. The XYZ feed rate is going to be 10. And the final feed rate will also be 10. And we're going to be naming this tool number 2. And finally, for our third event, just like the other 2, we're going to be grabbing the information from the back of the packet. This one is going to be a rectangular profile. So we're going to press Profile, Rectangular Profile. X1 is going to be 0.38. Y1 is going to be 0.38. X3 is going to be 2.63. And Y3 is going to be 2.63. The Z rapid is going to be 0.02. And the Z end is going to be -0.125. The conrad is going to be 0. The direction is going to be clockwise, so we're going to press 1 for clockwise. The tool offset is going to be left, so we're going to press 2 for left. The number of passes will be 2. The final cut is going to be 0.02. The RPM is going to be 2,000. Along with the final RPM will be 2,000. The Z feed rate will be 3. The XYZ feed rate will be 10. And the final feed rate will be 10. And we're going to be calling this tool number 2. Now we can press mode to return to our main menu, and we have all 3 of our vents programmed. Our next procedure is going to be setting up the touch-off reference point. To do this, we are going to grab our 6-inch Z gauge block and put it on top of the vise here. So we're going to close the vise and set the block right on top so that the 6 inches is sticking vertically upwards. Now to operate the spindle, we are going to press DRO and jog. Once you do this, it'll have a red banner up here saying the jog keys are active, and that means that the spindle will move up and down, or left or right. Now to change the feed rate, I'm going to press 100, ABS set, and this ± sign to change the direction of operation of our spindle. I will then hold the Z to lower the spindle. Now once we get close to our block, we're going to lower the feed rate down to around 5 or 10. So I'm going to press 10 and ABS set. We will then hold the Z to bring it slowly so that it can barely go under the Z block. Once the Z block can barely pass under the spindle, we will then remove the block, press mode to go back home. We're going to press setup and tool table. If there's anything already set in the tool table, we're just going to want to erase the whole thing. So we're going to press erase table and yes. Then we're going to press data up and ABS set at the top to set our reference point. We will then press mode to return back to the main menu. Our next procedure will be setting up the tool offset for our 1/4 inch drill. Before we do this, we're going to bring the spindle back up so we can install the drill. To do this, we'll press DRO and jog again. Ensure the feed rate is positive so the spindle will be moving upwards, and we hold the Z button. Once it's at an appropriate height, we can install the 1/4 inch drill. To do this, you're going to want to line up the holes onto the collet of the machine, bring it inwards, twist it so it locks in, and we're going to hold the in button. Once it's here, we're going to grab our 1x2x3 gauge block and place it on top of the vise so it's 2 inches sticking out vertically. We will then press the ± to change the feed rate to negative so our spindle will move downwards, and hold the Z button. Similarly with the previous step, we're going to change the feed rate to a lower number once it gets close to the Z block, and move it down slowly so that the gauge block will barely pass under our 1/4 inch drill. Once here, we're going to press mode to get back to the main menu. We're going to press setup and tool table, and we're now going to insert the diameter of our drill, which is 0.25. And we will set the Z offset and Z modifier as they are. So we'll press ABS set. And this is going to be a drill, so we're going to press 1 and ABS set. We'll now do the same thing with the 1/4 inch drill. So we're going to press return, mode, DRO, jog to get back to the jog menu. Ensure that the feed rate is positive to move the drill back upwards. We're going to hold the Z. We're now going to remove the 1/4 inch drill by pressing the out button. And we're going to install our 1/2 inch end mill. Same operation, twist it so the collet aligns and hold in. We'll then change the feed rate to negative and bring the collet down. Once we get around the gauge block, we're going to change the feed rate to a lower number and slowly bring it down. And similarly, you want to make sure that the gauge block can barely pass under the end mill. Once it barely passes under, we're going to press Mode, Set Up Tool Table, and we're going to enter in our information for our 1/2" end mill. So our diameter is 0.5, ABS set, and the Z modifier and Z offset we're going to set as they are, and this is going to be a finish end mill, so we're going to press 4, ABS set. We will then press Mode to return, and we have set up both of our offsets for our tools. Our next procedure is to set up the X, Y, and Z origin on our workpiece. So first, we will remove our 2" gauge block and bring the spindle head back up. We're going to press DRO jog, ensure the feed rate is positive, and move the spindle head back up. We will then remove the 1/2" end mill by pressing the out button. We will then grab our workpiece. Our workpiece is a 3" by 3" by 1/2" aluminum block. We're going to be opening up the jaws of the vise. And inserting the block on the parallels that are built in to the vise. You're going to want to ensure that it's placed in firmly, and also ensure that it's level on the vise. Once this is in, we're going to grab our 1/4" diameter drill and insert it back in the spindle. We're going to make sure that the jog is still on, and we're going to lower the spindle head back down by pressing the +- button and bringing the head down a little. Once it's around here, we're going to want to align our X and our Y axis. To do this, we're going to want to move the table so that the drill is around the left bottom corner of the workpiece. We will then lower the feed rate back down to around 10, ABS set, and slowly lower the drill onto the workpiece so that it's just barely over it. Once here, you can adjust your axes finally, ensuring that the drill is just over the closer left corner of the workpiece. Once it's here, to set the X and Y axis, you will press Return, X, 0, ABS set, and Y, 0, ABS set. Now to set our Z axis, we're going to want to make sure we're at the right tool number. So down here, we're going to press Tool Number. The current tool is 2, so we're going to change it to 1 by pressing 1, ABS set. We will then raise the spindle up by pressing Jog and holding the Z, ensuring the feed rate is positive. We will then reinsert our 2" gauge block on top of the workpiece and change the feed rate to negative and bring it down to around 5 or 10 and slowly lower the drill so that the 2" gauge block can barely pass under it. If it's too much, you press + - again to bring it slowly back up, and it can pass under. Once here, to set the Z coordinate, we will press Return, Z, 2, and ABS set. We have now set our X, Y, and Z axes for the machine. The next procedure is to set the Z tool retract height. To do this, we're going to leave the 1/4" drill in and remove our 2" gauge block. We're going to press Jog, ensure the feed rate is positive, and move the Z up to around 6. We will then grab our 6" gauge block and put it on top of our workpiece. Again, similarly to the previous step, we're going to change the feed rate and slowly bring the spindle down so that the 6" gauge block can barely pass under the head of the spindle. We're going to press Mode to return to the home, press Setup and Reference Position. We will then press ABS set at the top to set our Z retract, and then we don't want to set anything else up here, so we're going to press Mode to return back to the home. Our final step before we run our program is to ensure that we have all of our coordinates set up correctly and that the tool will not crash into the machine. In order to do this, we're going to press DRO and jog. We're going to place our 2" gauge block on top of our workpiece and bring our Z down to around 2. To do this, we're going to press the plus minus to ensure the feed rate is negative and bring the head down. Once it gets close, again, we're going to lower the feed rate, press ABS set, and slowly bring it down. Once it's around 2, we'll make sure that our Z gauge barely passes under. And then we will repeat the same process for our second tool. So we will change the feed rate to 150 and ensure that it's positive to raise the spindle head up. Hold the Z, remove our tool, and insert the 1/2 inch end mill. We will then bring the head back down by pressing the plus minus. Similarly, we are going to double check that tool number 2 does not crash into our workpiece. We're going to change the tool number to 2 and bring the Z head down to around 2 inches above our workpiece. Ensure that the feed rate is negative and hold Z. Once we get to around 2, we're going to lower the feed rate, ABS set, and hold the Z. Once we're around 2, we will then ensure that our 2-inch gauge block can pass under, which it does. We can now remove our 2-inch gauge block and bring the Z spindle back up. Ensure that the feed rate is positive and hold Z. And finally, we will check the tool path. To do this, we'll press Mode, Setup, and Tool Path. And we're going to want to ensure that our tool path looks like this. We are now finally set up to run our program. We will now run our program. To do this, we're going to press Mode, Run, and Start. This will bring up our first event. We will then press Go and listen to the instructions brought up on the screen. We're going to want to load our tool number 1, which is our 1/4 inch drill, which we already have in. We're going to make sure we turn the spindle on by going over here and turning this knob to 2. And we will also want to turn on our coolant. We want to flip this switch here and adjust the coolant so it's at the tip of the drill. Once here, we're going to lower the feed rate down by making sure the F is highlighted and pressing down to bring the feed rate to around 30. Once here, we can press Go to start our program. And we will stop it to ensure that we are at the right event and our coordinates are correct. So once you have confirmed that your event is correct and your axes are also correct, we're going to bring the feed rate back up to 100 and press Go to begin our drilling operation. Once here, we're going to listen to the control again by removing our first tool and inserting our 1/2 inch end mill. We're then going to turn our spindle head back on by going to 0 and turning it back to 2. We're going to adjust our coolant again so that it is at the tip of our end mill. We're going to bring the feed rate back down and press Go. Similarly, we're going to stop it, ensure that we're at the right event and our coordinates are correct. Once this is confirmed, we can bring the feed rate back up to 100 and start our operation. Once your program is executed, you can turn off the coolant, turn the spindle head back to 0, and remove our tool. Once here, we can take our airbrush and clean off part of the table. And remove our workpiece. You can clean your workpiece, and you can also deburr the edges on a belt sander or using a deburring tool. This will conclude using the ProtoTRAK Lab. Thank you for watching.